We turn now to the hot button issue, the now hot button issue of prosecutorial overreach. The issue has come to the forefront after the death of the renowned internet activist Aaron Swartz. Swartz took his own life after facing the prospect of 3 decades in prison for his alleged involvement in hacking and stealing millions of documents from an online academic archive. Now his family and supporters are saying the sentence prosecutors were calling for is outrageous, the father going as far as saying the government killed his son. So is there a problem with our justice system that needs some serious thought? And are federal prosecutors going too far and asking for punishments that don't fit the crime? To discuss, JD Tuccille, managing editor of Reason 24/7, joins us now. Welcome there, JD. So we have this new discussion that is being brought to the forefront. Is it overdue? Did it take the death of someone considered to be this genius in order to get people to care about the issue?
You know, it's horrible to think that that might be the case, but it does seem to be true. The fact of the matter is no one was discussing this, even though it has been going on for a while. In fact, Stephen Heyman, who is the assistant U.S. attorney involved in this case, was involved in another hacking case a few years ago where a hacker also took his life when he was threatened with fairly harsh penalties. So if anything comes out of this, if we actually get a discussion coming out of this, that's a good thing. But it's horrible that it took someone's life to do it.
Right. Yeah. It's really tragic. What drives prosecutors to ask for these harsh sentences?
Blind, raw ambition. Carmen Ortiz was being discussed as the next governor of Massachusetts. They were seriously throwing her name around as the Democratic candidate. Hopefully that discussion is over. But you never know. I mean, it's not uncommon for attorneys to put feathers in their caps. U.S. attorneys, prosecutors put feathers in their caps on the way up the political ladder. And that's why they do this. I mean, they want prosecutions under the belt. They want to look tough. And they want to be able to tell the voters that they've got the backbone to be, for the next political office they seek.
In other words, this is a way to make a name for themselves.
And that's all that it is. But, of course, they climb over bodies to do it.
Now, I do want to read this statement from U.S. Attorney Carmen Ortiz defending the government's actions in this case. She says, quote, "I must, however, make clear that this office's conduct was appropriate in bringing and handling this case. The career prosecutors handling this matter took on the difficult task of enforcing a law that they had taken an oath to uphold and did so reasonably." So they also go on there in that statement denying that they actually pursued the maximum sentence, even though they were entitled to. What's your reaction to their justification?
Well, she's trying to hide behind the fact that the law is badly written and that the lawmakers have already made a mistake when they crafted it. Had Swartz stolen a hard drive that contained the information that he downloaded, it would have been a misdemeanor, and he probably would have been facing probation. He downloaded the data, which he was entitled to do. He just downloaded more than his terms of agreement that he'd signed would allow him to. So then all of a sudden he's facing a felony prosecution. Carmen Ortiz had turned down his defense attorney's efforts to bargain for a non-prison sentence in this matter. He knew he was facing prison time one way or the other. There were 15 felony counts against him. It's extraordinarily harsh for simply downloading academic papers.
Right. So regardless of whether or not they were going to pursue that maximum sentence, the capacity is there for them to request that and to go after a sentence like that.
There was going to be prison time. That's clear. I mean, Ortiz is now saying that she was only going to ask for 6 months in prison. Well, I'm assuming that she's never served any prison time herself. 6 months can be an eternity if you're not a hardened criminal yourself. You're not ready for it. And that's a pretty stiff penalty for what Swartz did. So her defense claims aren't very impressive. I mean, they aren't very convincing at all.
All right. Do you think, JD, that one problem is that many of these laws are too vague and that there is space for prosecutors to ask for whatever they want?
The laws are vague and they're harsh. I mean, the law in this case, basically was meant to go after hackers and cyber terrorists. Instead, it's being used or was used against a open source advocate, somebody who believed that information should be free. Nobody is claiming that he was doing this for personal profit. There was no chance of that at all. He wanted to make these academic papers publicly available. And so, yes, he faced the possibility of decades in prison because of this. Even if there are assurances that they weren't going to seek a maximum sentence, he was still going to be a convicted felon with all the loss of civil rights that involves. So, yes, the law is harshly written. It's vaguely written. A lot of our laws are. And then they give prosecutors maximum leeway to seek prosecutions in very strange cases, to apply these laws very strangely. And you never know then what a judge is going to hand down in terms of sentence.
Right. Certainly having a felony on your record, no matter what, is something that will haunt you for the rest of your life. You know, there's kind of this ideal. In a perfect world, people that go into law do it because they want to be part of serving justice, this justice system. But, you know, when prosecutors are driven to ask for the maximum sentence instead of a fair sentence, to me, that doesn't sound like justice.
Well, no, it doesn't sound like justice at all. I mean, as I said before, this is political ambition driving, very clearly political ambition driving these prosecutors. I don't think justice played any part in this. So they could have slapped them on the wrist. They could have offered probation. They could have said, don't do it again. JSTOR, the organization from which these documents were downloaded, didn't want any prosecution at all. So it's hard to see where any kind of justice lies in this case.
Right. Could this ever change? I mean, is it possible to tip the balance of power so that there's not so much of it in the hands of the prosecutor?
Well, yes. I mean, lawmakers could write laws so that they're actually specific. They could write laws that are understandable, and they could write laws that don't give so much leeway to prosecutors. But they would have to do that at the state and federal level in the lawmaking bodies, in Congress and in the Massachusetts legislature or other state legislatures. There is now an investigation going on, bipartisan one in Congress, into the conduct of the U.S. attorney here. And that investigation should go forward. But it's only going to achieve real results if they not just penalize this U.S. attorney, but if they also change the way they draft laws and put more effort into it so they're not so vague in the end.
Right. JD, do you think we've reached a tipping point, I mean, in the wake of Aaron Swartz, where we are now going to take a serious look at these laws, at the power of the prosecutor, and possibly think about some real change? Do you think we've reached that point?
Well, we're having a discussion. We're having this conversation that wasn't going on before. So we at least have an opportunity. Whether we take advantage of this opportunity to its full extent, whether we make the changes that need to be done, we're going to see in the next few weeks, probably the next few months. But the opportunity is here now to make these changes.
All right. JD, great to have you on as always. That was JD Tuccille, managing editor of Reason 24/7.